Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try this again. This is the fourth time I started this now. We've had some sort of interruption. So let's hope this fourth time's a charm. This is an Isuzu 4BD2T clutch housing, and I believe this is from an early 91 because the snout measures about 1.4 with my $29 digital caliper. Best I can tell, this vintage, in general, snout diameters are 1.4 something, 1.5 something. This is a shift block from my Nissan FD35T. Fits right on there. When I mounted it in my Scout, the Nissan, I mounted it to a T191, and I used a Ford bearing retainer, and that Nissan shift block, or as we call it, throw out bearing and carrier, slid right on the Ford. I had to cut the snout off the Ford bearing retainer for what I'm going to show you here in a minute. So anyway, I want to put an Isuzu 4BD1T in my 69 International Scout, and I want to retain, because it's what I got, my International T19 and my Dana 300 transfer cases. So there's the bell housing off the Nissan right there. Just using that to hold this one up. So I made this this adapter plate. I had a friend make it on a water jet. Made it out of 3/8 inch steel, but I found now it needs to be a little bit thicker. I did the same thing when I mounted the Nissan in the Scout. So here's just some washers. They're not 1/8 of an inch thick, but they space it up enough, you'll see what's going on here. Alright, I'm holding the phone. I gotta do this one-handed. This ought to be fun. But I do other stuff one-handed that's pretty fun, so I shouldn't have a problem here. Let's see, there's that one. And that one, opposite poles. Everything else just falls right in place. Washer's in the way. Okay, so here's my T19 snout retainer, bearing retainer. Cut the snout off. T19 is different than the International. This is the International. You see how far up in there the seal is? That wasn't going to work with what I had going on before. So, whole lot of, it's just a bearing retainer, but it's insanely different, running from the Ford to the International. This is the shift block, and here's the Scout bearing retainer. Here's the Scout throw out bearing. Look at that shit. This is the same one they use on like a 4-cylinder. Look at the size of this stuff. Everything on that Scout drivetrain was just enormous. Anyway, so let's go back here. Here's our bearing retainer. Now I'm going to rotate this around so that this area here for the oil return kind of lines up with this relief cup, just to help get that laying down in there better. Okay. This is your input shaft. From my thumb back is Ford T19. From my thumb forward is a 1-inch input shaft from the Nissan. It's a 1-inch shaft. I think the spline's like 24 or something. Anyway, watch this. Shazam. Yeah, pretty cool. I think it's going to work with a 1/2 inch thick plate though. 1/2 inch thick plate. I'll need to make some room on the clutch housing for the bolt heads and for that oil return. I think maybe the oil return with a 1/2 inch thick plate. We'll see. I think Diesel Tim or somebody like that makes an adapter for NV 4500. I'm trying to do this a little bit more low buck. So he cuts the snout off. I'm not going to have to do that. And I looked online. Phoenix Clutches makes a clutch kit for this transmission, a 12-inch clutch. It's actually in millimeters, a 300 millimeter or something like that, with this same spline on it. So that, and this is a late 80s vintage Nissan engine, so it just must have been something that was fairly common back then. So it's definitely looking doable to be able to put the T19 behind the 4BD1T and other than the bearing retainer and the adapter plate, everything's pretty much in the shaft. Oh, Standard Transmissions made this for me. They did a nice job. I think they charged me $125. They turned it around in like 3 days. It was unreal. And when I got it back, I took it over to my buddy who's a machinist. He's a gunsmith. And we put it on his lathe, and he ran it out, and there's nothing in this thing, man. When a gunsmith tells you there's nothing in it, there's nothing in it. So it's starting to look pretty good. I'm getting excited. Can't wait to get it mounted in here and drive the old beast again. Anyway, if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for looking.